Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Royals Rundown Podcast presented by Royals Review. I am Jacob Milham, joined this week by the one, the only, Jeremy Greco. Jeremy, how we feeling?
Hello, Jacob. I'm feeling wonderful. What are
All
we
right,
doing?
listen, I watched Wicked again. I was trying to do my best Wizard of Oz impression. It wasn't
I
the
thought we were doing
best.
radio voices.
Listen, hey, I had a whole other life that people don't know about. I was a radio DJ for a whole year on
That's
a
so cool.
remote
Everyone always
island called
tells
Diego
me, you have a
Garcia.
radio voice, and I'm like, but I'm not on the radio.
I tell people I have a face for radio. Does that count for anything? There's a reason why we don't do video here, folks. But
It's
of
mostly my
course,
background.
womp womp. I don't think so, but you can keep believing that, Jeremy, if you'd like. Before we get too deep into it, you have to go check out the folks that make this happen. RoyalsReview.com. Kansas City Royals news, analysis, and commentary you need to keep your spirits up, to keep things fueled through these winter months. It's been a
Screw
little slow.
Christmas spirit. You need Royals rumor spirit.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, General Manager JJ Piccolo did everything in his power to kill that spirit. He was
Yeah, a
the
little bit.
Scrooge, as some might say. Let's go ahead and hop right into it, Jeremy. So, thankfully, we actually heard from JJ Piccolo following the winter meetings on
Are we
96.5 The
thankful
Fan.
for
I am.
hearing from him,
I am. I
given what he
like hearing from
said?
the guy. Well, I mean, I didn't like what he said. I like that he said things. There is a difference there. There is some
Yes.
minutia there. So, cliff notes. It was a long interview. There was good insights. You can go listen to it on the Cody and Gold show on Odyssey. But the cliff notes that you need to know, because there's a lot of Royals fans out there that are, I think anxiety is kind of setting in. Like, we know that they made moves, but are they gonna make another move?
This is not going to calm your anxiety.
It's not, unfortunately. So Piccolo said that the team is, quote, 75%, end quote, done achieving their offseason goals. Team is still seeking pitching depth and a left-handed hitting bench player, preferably an infielder. Jeremy, I don't know about you, but my gut reaction when I saw 75% was like, I can see 60, but 75%? We got some work to do, don't we?
Where's that second bat? He promised us a second bat. The thing that stands out to me that I don't think you mentioned in your summary there was that he felt really good about the payroll. He said he feels really good about where the payroll's at. They
Yeah.
have some flexibility if they have the right person, blah blah blah. But he feels why do you feel really good about where it's at? What GMs say that all the time. What does that even mean? I feel really good about where it's at. Well, does that mean you feel like you've spent the appropriate amount of money? Or does it mean this is how much money you're told you're allowed to spend? Does it mean I've spent the correct amount to get the maximum bonus from the owner this year? What does it mean?
What do the numbers mean?
I'm just, and we had just went over this discussion. Was it last week? I think.
Yeah, it was last week.
Of the Royals, you have to spend 1.5 times whatever money you're getting in revenue sharing. 70 million is apparently the max. The Royals, if they're not getting 70, are very close to that, which means they are barely spending above what they have to spend. And you feel good about that, JJ Piccolo? Do you? Do you feel good about that? Now, offseason's not done yet. We still have 3 months before pitchers and catchers even start reporting, okay? Like,
I don't want to think about it.
yeah, we've got a hot minute here for things to happen. So I'm gonna try not to get too worked up. I also did feel that it was important. He pointed out that guys are getting big contracts right now. I do not remember who I was reading who was like, yeah, the pitchers are getting way overpaid right now, but the position players aren't. But the position players also aren't signing. So it may be that the position players are trying to get as much of a payday as the pitchers are, and it's not happening. So it's kind of a situation where if the Royals want hitting, they want pitching depth, they are going to have to kind of wait it out right now. So that's where I'm at. I also And just never stop talking, I guess.
I'd keep going, Jeremy. I love it.
The last thing that interests me is that they want that left-handed bat to be an infielder. They already have too many infielders last time I checked.
They're left-handed hitters.
Yeah, and they're all they got lefties. They got Pasquantino, they got Massey. They've got lefties all in the outfield, MJ Melendez and Kyle Isbell. Why do we want a left? Maybe they want a left-handed third baseman to platoon with
Maybe.
Garcia, but that's not enough. Whatever it is we're doing here, I want a starter at third base.
Yeah.
And I want Garcia to be a super utility guy. This is again, the offseason's not over.
Mm-hmm.
He's said other things. We've heard back and forth from different sources saying between it's going to be 120 million. Oh, it might be 140 million, somewhere in between. And it's like there's even with 120 million, there's still room to play with right now.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that was more of a negotiating thing of like, hey y'all, we're not going to pay you $25 million. You're going to have to bring that down to like 18. Okay. So we'll see what happens. They were really aggressive last offseason.
Yeah.
And I want to believe that they're going to continue to be aggressive. I'll come back to that thought in a moment. You talk now for a minute.
I appreciate it. So when I first saw that 75% quote, my gut reaction wasn't good. It really wasn't. There's at least like 4 spots that I can name off the top of my head that the Royals at least need to add spring training competition to, or at like viable 26-man contending sort of players.
I just had this thought, so I have to throw it out there.
Uh,
Okay, if all I'm looking for is pitching depth and a left-handed bench hitter, my offseason is 90% done.
Fair.
So I feel like the 75% might be telling us, okay, that's not all we're looking for. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading maybe my percentages are different from Piccolo's and I'm like, well, pitching depth and a bench bat aren't that much of a percentage of my roster. I don't know.
This might not make a whole lot of sense coming out of my mouth. It made sense in my brain. I'm sure our listeners know that feeling sometimes. But when I saw the 75%, I was like, yeah, this is about 75% of a 100-win team. Okay, like this is about a 75 win team right now.
Yeah, the Brady Singer for Jonathan India trade, I love it, but it doesn't make the team significantly better by itself.
Correct.
It changes where the strengths and weaknesses are, but it makes it, I mean, it's rough. That's what happens when you trade major league players. You're roughly the same as where you started.
You are taking from a strength to address a weakness. The Royals right now are a better balanced team. I would say that. I think they're much more balanced. But right
They're
now,
more likely to win when the top 3 are pitching, but less likely to win when the bottom 2 are pitching.
right, which is why they need to add, especially to the outfield. The outfield, the thing that he didn't talk about this interview. Like you're out there, and this what you didn't say matters as well. The fan base right now
go into another season with an outfield plan of Melendez, Isbell, Renfroe. We cannot.
Correct. Like
one of the worst outfields in baseball last year, and you don't upgrade it at all?
It was the worst batting outfield.
And it wasn't
in
good
baseball.
Fielding either.
No.
Isbell was good, but the other 2 were awful.
Correct. And we'll talk about the Cody Bellinger stuff later on in the show, because I think Royals fans do need to recognize this. Isbell is not the problem.
No,
I don't think he is. I mean,
in a perfect world, if you're the Yankees or you're the Dodgers or you're the Mets, you're looking to upgrade over him.
Yeah.
But you're not them, and you can still make huge upgrades in the corner outfield spots very easily.
Precisely. So I am hopeful that what he was saying about the payroll also is kind of a coordinated communication plan, because we've been hearing this a lot from mid to small market teams right now about, hey, payroll is probably going to be about the same, go down a little bit.
Are you accusing them of collusion?
I mean, I'm not accusing anyone of collusion. Just have the winter meetings. Anywho, go and move on from that real quick. All that to say, we know that if the Dodgers We know that if the Yankees, we know that if the Mets want a player and that is the top priority, they can go out and get that player. The Royals don't have that luxury. I mean, all right, I'll
They
pass it off to Jeremy.
can,
Yes.
they won't, but they could.
Could. They could. So,
The Royals wanted to pay well, maybe Juan Soto because Steve Cohen was like, I'm getting Juan Soto.
yeah.
I don't care. But anybody else, if the Royals wanted them, they could get them.
Going back to the outfield real quick, because I think the frustrating part is there isn't a guy in the outfield down on the farm that we can say, yes, this is going to be the guy who is even pushing for the 26-man roster, much less making it better. Like, I can't go and look at Nelson Velasquez after the season he had, whether it be at the MLB level or in AAA, and say he is going to be the solution. I can't look at Drew Waters or Tyler Gentry and say those things. The improvement has to come from outside of the organization right now. Plain and simple. And you have to fork up assets, whether it be money, whether it be prospects, to get that done. And if he's playing the long game here, cool. Like Jeremy said, we got a couple of months until pitchers and catchers report. We do have time.
It's also, I guess, worth pointing out, as Oleski has mentioned on his blog multiple times now, or his newsletter multiple times now, the Royals said that they were looking to spend a certain amount last year, and they spent more than that. So he has this theory that, like, the Royals will tell you that they're going to spend a certain amount, so that when they spend more than that, they seem more generous. Or, like, you don't want to say, well, our salary's probably going to be in the 150 million range. And then, oh, well, things didn't quite work out and we got a better deal than we thought. And you end up at 140 and everyone's like, where's the other 10 million? So I think that makes sense. And it worked out that way last year. Again, I am on the record as believing they're going to continue to be aggressive this year. Joe Posnanski wrote a little thing about the AL Central this year that I want to talk about in a minute.
Okay.
And there's time still to be aggressive. Anthony Santander still doesn't have a home. Bregman still doesn't have a home. Teoscar Hernandez still doesn't. Lots of high, like, batters that you probably the Royals aren't going after, but guys that are like good players that are still available. And so there's opportunities out there. This is not like the Royals have missed the boat and there's just no one worth signing anymore.
Correct. We're on a pendulum right now, and I would have loved to hear JJ Piccolo say, hey, we're going to go out and we are a World Series or bust, baby. Like, I would love to hear that. But in reality, to label what Lesky was saying about that theory, because I hear this saying in work all the time, you under promise and over deliver. That's how it works in corporate America. That's how it works in front office America, apparently, as well.
That's how it works. One of my favorite things that I always think about is Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, at the very beginning. So they've just had this awful battle and the ship is heavily damaged and they're heading back to space dock, and Captain Kirk asks Chief Engineer Scotty, he says, hey, how long is it going to take you to fix the ship? And he says 8 weeks. And Kirk starts to go, whoa, that's way too long. And Scotty goes, but I know you don't have 8 weeks, so I'll do it in 2.
Damn,
and Kirk goes, do you always multiply your repair estimates by a factor of 4? And he goes, how do you think I got my reputation as a miracle worker? So, like, this is a thing from the past in the 80s where they were making this movie, to the future when the movie is set. Under promise, over deliver. Absolutely. I do believe that there is still a very strong possibility that the Royals are under promising and will over deliver.
Hey, I will keep my fingers crossed about them over delivering. Jeremy, before we get too far away from it, I love reading Joe's work. I really do. I own both of the books, baseball books that he's put out recently. So I'd love to hear what's this piece they put together on the AL Central.
He's doing a daily division by division breakdown of where the teams are so far in the offseason. And when he talks about the Royals, he mentions that, basically the only move so far is Brady Singer's gone. Jonathan India is here now. But as he describes the team, he describes them as the only aggressive small market team. You look at the Tigers haven't done anything yet this offseason. They were right behind the Royals for the playoffs. So the Royals are already still in better position than the Tigers. The Guardians trading major league quality players away for prospects to cut
Mm-hmm.
salary. The Twins haven't added anybody. The White Sox, it doesn't really matter what the White Sox do. They traded Garrett Crochet away, so then now they don't even have their ace. And they got some good looking prospects. Kyle
Mm-hmm.
Teal may start the year on their major league roster, but that's not a team that is. So the Royals haven't fallen back in the division, and they're still. I mean, Poznanski doesn't say they were aggressive last year. He says he describes them as still being aggressive now. I haven't seen the evidence of that aggression, but if
Mm-hmm.
Poznanski tells me it's happening, I believe it. I believe that the Royals are out there, working the phones, calling all the free agents, calling all the teams, and that something will happen eventually. So that was my takeaway from that is if Poznanski says they're aggressive and I don't see evidence of them having been aggressive yet, then the aggressiveness must be still bubbling, still boiling, still happening.
Must be. Okay. I certainly hope that that's the case. Jeremy, if you send me the link to that, I'll make sure it's linked down the podcast description below. While he is doing that, I do want to remind everyone out there that there's plenty of good reading you could do over at royalsreview.com. All right. Great team over there. Good comment section. If you think that you got the chops to write, go for it. We have the fan post section, which is where Jeremy and I got our start at. A transaction that we do need to talk about from the Royals. Taylor Clark is back with the organization on a minor league deal.
Oh, I
Now,
missed that.
yeah, I know, right? It's a crazy time. It's absolutely wild. But it's Taylor Clark at the end of the day. So if you recognize the name but can't quite remember why, well, Clark pitched for the Royals in 2022 and 2023, but things absolutely fell off the rails in 2023. He had a great start to his time here in Kansas City. If I'm looking at this right, he had a 3.53 ERA over his first 74 outings with the Royals coming out of the bullpen. Great stuff for a buy low addition. And then over the last 29 outings, he gave up 32 runs in that span. Like that is absolutely atrocious. They traded him away to the Brewers. He didn't appear in the majors with the Brewers. He's available again, so now he's back with the organization. Guess what his best pitch was in 2022 when he was at his best with the Royals, Jeremy?
Lighter.
Slider. Absolutely. And if I'm looking at this right, in 2021, which it was kind of his year where he established himself as a bullpen guy who could be trusted. It was the same case then. He really relied on that slider. So hopefully the Royals can find that success again. Get this. So the 100, the stuff plus scale, 100 is average. He had a 124 stuff plus on his slider in 2023.
See why you'd take a flyer on that for your
Yeah,
minor league
might as well.
team.
Might as well. We'll see what happens there. He does have one minor league option remaining, so that might make him an attractive candidate to watch during spring training competition. But we will see what happens. Jeremy, we brought up the Cody Bellinger trade. You ready to talk about it?
Yeah.
All right.
I real quick, I just want to say about Clark that I am very interested actually in what he could bring to the team. Just looking at kind of a glance at his numbers here, he had a 3.16 Sierra in 2022 with the Royals, pretty good.
Yeah.
And then last year, or 2023, he had the 5.95 ERA, obviously awful, but a 4.08 Sierra that suggests he should not have been that bad.
No.
Even though his walk rate more than doubled, and that was really the kind of the big issue with him was his walk rate just spiraled completely out of control. Of course, that was also the season the Royals were saying raid the zone.
Yeah.
But maybe they can help him figure something out, and he can become a valuable pitcher again because he was worth. I mean, 0.7 WAR as a reliever in 2022 is not bad, honestly. I mean, it's not Wade Davis or Lucas Urseg, but it's you'd take that in the middle of your bullpen for sure.
I absolutely would too.
All
But
right, so we can talk
yeah.
about Bellinger now.
Yeah, let's go and talk about Bellinger. So that was the big move so far of the MLB week. I would say Cody Bellinger heading over to the New York Yankees, a move that was telegraphed. Like this was the move to expect. It wasn't a surprise. I was kind of surprised that a former Royals pitcher went from the Yankees to the Cubs in the move. Just saying, just a little tidbit for you. But this was all really just about a salary dump.
Absolutely.
The Cubs wanted to get Bellinger's contract off the books. He has a player option for 2026, but even then if he picks that up, he's owed like 52.5 million over 2 years, which he's still a good player, but he's not at that MVP level that he was getting paid at. The real story here for the Royals, though, Jeremy, is this got a lot of backlash from Royals fans, like a lot more than I was expecting. I get it. Bellinger's name is in the news. You love to see the Royals involved in the move, but like it's not like this was going to be the savior. I definitely think that if they would have gone out and gotten Bellinger, there would have been concerns about like where does he fit? Where's
Yeah.
his best spot? Is he a surefire improvement to this roster being shoehorned in somewhere where he doesn't belong? I like he was a 109 WRC plus player in 2024. I get it. We've said several times on this podcast, if you have a below average in the cellar sort of player and you upgrade it with an average player, that's still a massive upgrade. For the money, I would hope that the Royals would get something better than slightly above average, right, Jeremy?
So Cody Poteet for Cody Bellinger. Also, the Cubs kicked in 5 million to defray his salary a little bit. Not my money, but I would do that every day of the week. Bellinger would be 2.5 WAR over MJ Melendez. He would be at least that much over Renfro, I believe. If you put him in the corner outfield spots, he plays a lot of center and a lot of first base for the Dodgers, which is like a very weird combination.
I know, right?
Almost the same. Renfro was a negative 0.1 FWAR last year. I think he probably could handle a corner outfield spot. He probably wouldn't be great, but neither were Melendez and Renfro. And
Fair.
if he's a slightly above average hitter, that still lengthens your lineup in a way that the Royals desperately need. Now, I do think so. I wish the Royals had done that deal. I think it would have improved the team. I think it wouldn't have cost them much in terms of prospect capital, and then we'd know kind of where our lineup was going to be, and I'd be happy about it. I'd be like, all right, adding India and Bellinger to this lineup, I think is sufficient. But on the other hand, not doing that deal isn't surprising, for one thing. If it was just this year, I think you have to do that deal.
Yeah,
But
I
because
agree.
of the 20 plus million due next year as well, that's where it's like, and then there are still so many other options out there right now that you don't have, again, what we were talking about earlier. There's so many options still available for the Royals. They have not lost all opportunity to upgrade their outfield by missing out on this. So I'm just like, yeah, well, didn't get him. I wish they had, would have been cool, but there's still a lot of other guys out there. Now, if they don't do anything, that's when I get upset. But there are still other opportunities. Just because you didn't get this one it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely fair. At the end of the day, Bellinger is a guy who is kind of on a half-life trend right now. Like he was worth 4.4 FWAR in 2023, and then he was worth 2.2 FWAR in 2024. It's not a good trend. He was a very volatile player with the Dodgers sometimes. So I'm not up in arms about this, primarily because of the money. Like I do think that there is a budget, and I would rather it be distributed a little bit more. Like that's
There
just me,
is a budget,
Jeremy.
but I will continue to insist that I will continue to refuse to think in terms of the budget, just because the budget is much stingier than it has to be.
Yeah, that's true. If you follow Royals Review on Twitter, you will know that our admin over there had a pretty good point about Bellinger. So Bellinger's known for his power and tweeted out Bellinger hit just 12 balls that would have been out at Kauffman Stadium this past year and had a lot of down arrows in his baseball savant page. He's still under 30, so a resurgence is possible, but the Royals can't pay $49 million over 2 years just to find out $49 million with that. $5 million that you were talking about.
And you could say they shouldn't. They shouldn't pay that much. That's not a
Yeah,
good investment.
correct.
But I hate this. They can't. They could. They could. They absolutely could. Probably still make a profit.
Probably so.
And you could say, like, in a vacuum of, is he worth this deal? No, probably not. So that's fine if you don't want to do that. But also, if you don't like any of the free agent guys and you don't have a lot of prospect capital to give up, I could see where it might make sense. And you hope to heck that he completely explodes and exercises the player option, and you say, well, thanks for 2025. Good luck out there.
Exactly. If you don't recognize Poteet's name, that's okay. He spent just the 2023 season in the Royals organization. He came up with the Marlins, had Tommy John in August of 2022, if I recall correctly. So he spent most of the season he was here rehabbing and trying to get better. He made one appearance with the Storm Chasers. It's cool and all, but he had like I remember Joel Sherman reporting that he had some sort of understanding with the Royals that if he didn't get selected in the Rule 5 draft or added to the 40-man roster, he was going to go. And so they released him and he moved on to the Yankees. Had some success with the Yankees in 2024. He had some
And
value.
well, for certain
Some,
this is one of those things where, yeah, technically he had success. Technically, the innings he pitched were resulted in very few runs being scored. But also, like, the when you look at them, you're like, they could have resulted in a lot of runs, and kind of a miracle that they didn't.
yes, correct. He's probably one of the least valuable pitchers
Yeah,
on
he had a
the
2.22
Yankees.
ERA in 24 and a third innings, but a 4.74 Sierra.
There you go.
A 4.03 FIP, a 4.33 FIP. So, like, he was mediocre at best. He does not strike anyone out. He also doesn't limit the walks. He has a K minus BB percentage in the single digits. Not exactly what you're looking for when you're like, hey, how do we improve our pitching staff?
Not great, Bob. Another transaction of note, the Royals did sign pitcher Kyle Wright to a contract for 2025, avoiding arbitration. And also, they signed pitchers Noah Cameron and Evan Sisk to 2025 contracts. So a few more guys getting officially
Whoa.
locked up. Yeah,
I saw
I
the
am
Royals
desperate.
signed. Like, I got an alert on my phone. The Royals signed. I'm like, what
Oh,
okay.
it's the
Just
guy
the
they
guy
already
who was
have.
always, they were always going to keep no matter what. Like,
Yeah.
only difference, how much were they going to pay him?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to dive too deep into this because I would love us to do the same exercise as Annie Rogers over at MLB.com, but she did list out 3 free agents that could fit into the Royals pitching staff. Lo and behold, number one option, Michael Lorenzen, old friend.
Shocking.
I had a whole write up about why I would re-sign him, making a priority following the winter meetings. He fits. It makes sense. Number 2 on our list, Ross Stripling, kind of a journeyman pitcher right now, 35 years old, more viewed as a bounce back guy. And then a guy that I don't really know a whole lot about, Spencer Turnbull, spent the 2024 season with the Phillies, kind of an oft injured guy, but those last 2 are really just bounce back guys that Rogers is looking at. That starting pitching depth that Piccolo talked about. Those are the sort of guys that the Royals are in the market for right now. But I would love for us to do that same exercise at some point, Jeremy. So I don't want to dive too deep into that. The only other thing that is of note from the baseball world right now is MLB's internal report talking about the pitcher rules affecting injuries and how this is going to look. All in all, unfortunately, MLB has made this report very not secretive, but when you don't just drop the full report anywhere, it's frustrating. I find it frustrating, at least, because I would love to sit down and read this. Sounds like a great informative read.
Sure.
But Jeremy,
That's not what I hear, Jacob.
I was about to say, you pointed out that not a lot of folks are agreeing or liking the process or the findings of this report.
Yeah, so two baseball minds that I think have shown themselves pretty worthy of respect. in MLB, Eno Saris and Keith Law have gotten their hands on the thing, and they both pretty much agree that it is almost entirely anecdotal, with references to unpublished studies that are not listed anywhere in there. And of course, they're unpublished, so they're not available. And that also means, by the way, unpublished usually means they have not been peer reviewed, which, you can have all kinds of nonsense in a study that hasn't been peer reviewed. But basically, there's very little in the way of numbers and a lot of correlation. They talk about. I think I saw one of the surgeons that they talked to said, "Well, you see the injuries start going up when the velocity starts going up, and so obviously those two things are connected. But that, my friends, is correlation, which does not equal causation."
It does not.
Even if it makes sense that those two things would go together, you got to prove it. You can't just
Right.
say, "Well, it does," because they happen. No, that's not how this works. So it looks they both kind of imply, and other people have kind of said that it looks kind of like MLB is trying to kind of cover their butts on the whole, because pitchers keep saying, "Oh, it's the pitch clock's making us get hurt,"
Hmm.
and I don't believe that either. So really what we need here is an actual study or three that actually figures out what's going on, because, it would be better if pitchers weren't getting hurt all the time.
Yeah.
But also to just throw some anecdotes at it and be like, "Yeah, see, everything, this is all your fault for trying too hard." That doesn't work either.
No, it really doesn't. I also found it interesting. Tom Verducci over at Sports Illustrated pointed out that the report, quote, did not mention current players. So, like, it listed all the people that they sat down and talked about for this report. MLB did not say that they spoke to current players about this.
Not
So,
shocking,
it's
considering the push for the pitch clock is a problem is coming from the current players.
right. But, like, if you want to, in my mind, if you want some insight into the current aspect of the game and how this aspect is affecting baseball in 2024 and beyond, you would have to talk about or talk to the people who are
I
playing
I
baseball at
think
that level.
I think this is one of those cases where that's not necessarily true.
Okay.
I think when you're talking about injury,
Hmm.
you want to talk to physicians and scientists and do studies from that direction. The pitchers can tell you what hurts. They
Hmm.
can't. They're very unlikely to be able to tell you why. They don't have the answer. If they did, they wouldn't get hurt.
So, all in all, if you're out there listening, if you're interested in this, I don't have the full report. It's not publicly available right now. I would keep a close eye because I think this is, I don't know, maybe if there's enough negative backlash, maybe MLB pushes it out. You never know with some of these communications
I'm
folks.
shaking my head at you, Jacob.
I know.
I don't. They're
I'm
no. They
optimistic.
they ain't gonna do that because they don't want increased scrutiny on the thing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, Jeremy,
The
what do you
worse
say?
the backlash gets, the less likely they are to put it out there,
Fair.
because they know that people will have a desire to confirm their biases.
All right, Jeremy, what do you say we get to some Royals reviews, huh?
I reckon we can do that.
All right, sounds like a plan. Jeremy, you got a short one for us today?
Let's see. I could try. So I've been playing Marvel Rivals for the last week,
Yeah, yeah.
which is a new hero shooter, they call it, though there is a lot of punching involved, being as it's Marvel heroes. One of the most popular heroes right now is Iron Fist, which is funny considering how awful the Netflix series was. But he's so overpowered. So he's also one of the most hated still. And that's fun. But I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's free to play. It does not. It has have cross platform play, but not cross platform progression.
Mm,
So that's weird to me. But also, one of the cool things that they've advertised is that the season passes never expire, which is nice. The season pass is $5. I
mhm.
don't know how long it lasts. I've made it to almost the end of it in the week. How long has it been out? 2 weeks, a
Yeah.
week and a half now. I made it almost to the end of the thing already, at least as far as unlocking what I can buy. Because you get currency that then you can use to buy things on the season pass, but you have to have a certain level of currency to open the later pages. I don't know. It's a little bit confusing to me, the whole thing. I'm having fun. They've got a lot of ability for quick play. I've done some ranked. I got all the way up to silver 3. Felt pretty good about that,
Ooh.
and immediately got my butt kicked back down to bronze 1. Um, and I'm just not good at multiplayer stuff. I refuse to dedicate the time for this competitive stuff to just like really hone in on strategies and such. But there's a versus AI thing that you can also do, and a lot of daily quests and achievements that I've been trying to pursue and having a lot of fun with.
Okay.
So if you're like an Overwatch person or a Marvel person, you can check it out.
All right, there we go. I like it. Yeah, I've heard it's the Overwatch killer,
Might
quote
be.
unquote. It looks pretty dang similar. I got an off the wall one for you. So I was going through some of my old stuff upstairs, and I found like my original copy of 1984 that I had. Like it has annotations in it from in high school when like that was the
Bragging.
project. I was I was a smart kid, Jeremy. I don't know about you.
Nope.
But it got me thinking on like some of the weird stuff that we had to read in high school when I was going through at least. And I went back and I reread a short story that we had to read, The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell.
Mhm.
If you don't remember that one, it's about a wealthy man who hunts people, like humans, for sport on his own private island. And that's the whole premise of this.
Believe that's I remember hearing about that. I've never read it.
And it is number one, just a kind of an odd thing to read in formative years in high school. Um Also,
Convinced most of the things we read in high school are dumb, but that's a whole other soapbox.
oof, I know, right? Also, I went back and read it. I was like, this is okay. It's not bad, but it's also not great. Like it's a solid little short story. I don't know why that was sitting on my mind that I wanted to reread that. I know that the Most Dangerous Game has inspired some other books and movies and things like that. Certainly, some tropes that were taken from that story have permeated throughout entertainment, so it might be formative in that manner. But the source material itself, kind of lackluster. Well, that's just me. Most Dangerous Game by
Yeah,
Richard
that's
Connell.
that's a lot. So a lot of this okay, I'm gonna soapbox it, I guess. A lot of classical literature, including Shakespeare, who I like Shakespeare, believe it or
Hmm.
not, is more important for what it changed about how literature was perceived than it is good on its own merits. Like a lot
Gotcha.
of that stuff was good for its time, is not good now.
Mm.
Which is why, like, if you're gonna do Shakespeare, you want to do like a Spark Notes that has like translations so people can actually understand. Like, if they can't understand it, then it's not any good. And that's not like you got to do this because Shakespeare. No, screw it. Translate the dang thing, okay?
Hmm.
And then like I read The Last of the Mohicans and The Grapes of Wrath, and I don't remember anything about those. And I know that they led to other things in literature, but
Hmm.
they're not great on their own in the modern era. So it's just like pick books that built on those things.
Mm.
And like we don't have to still be reading the same books from 50, 60 years ago. We can read more modern literature that's better from what it learned from those older books.
Correct. That absolutely makes sense, Jeremy. Thank you for your soapbox. I do appreciate it. But that is going to do it for us today on the Royals Rundown podcast. Thank you very much for joining us for a little literature talk. Make sure you follow us on social media if you want some more nonsense, such as our reviews or our thoughts on the current world. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. You can follow us on Blue Sky primarily. Our links are down in the podcast description below. Or you can follow Royals Review or the Royals Rundown podcast on Twitter at the respective handles. I am Jacob Milham. They're Jeremy Greco. Thank you very much for joining us today. And until next time, go Royals.